Thank you so much, Daryl, and we thank you for this opportunity to come live on Savage Solutions, Sea Joy Network. Thank you, Daryl, to Daryl Breath, all the way in Boston, Massachusetts. Also to Minister Donnie Savage. We thank you for this opportunity. We are going to discuss on today, can a private employer terminate an employee for refusal to obtain the vaccination? Can a private employer terminate an employee for their refusal to take the vaccination? So we're going to explore this issue on today because I have received numerous calls from individuals inquiring about, can my employer make me take this vaccination? Am I required to take the vaccination? And we want to understand that the employer cannot do this, or they may be able to do it. So let's look at some issues surrounding how this employer can do this or may not be able to do this. First of all, I want to give you some background information on who I am. I am Attorney Sheila R. Stuart, Attorney Sheila R. Stuart, and I am located in Clayton, Missouri at 231 South Beamiston Avenue, 231 South Beamiston Avenue. That is where we are located, and we are in Suite 800. The phone number there is 314-854-1339, 314-854-1339, Suite 800, Clayton, Missouri. And I am going to discuss with you on today what rights you have as a private employee working for a private employer. What rights do you have? Can they mandate that you take the vaccination? Can they mandate this upon you? So we want to look at how this has evolved to where we are today with this mandatory threat that's out there that has many people are alarmed due to this threat. And I want to help dispel some of the fears and just give you some information. Now, this is for informational purposes only. This is for informational purposes only. Many people that may see this feed, you may live in a different state. Different states will have different rules and regulations. I am in the state of Missouri. And our state may have different rules and regulations than your state. However, all states are subject to the federal law. All states are subject to the federal laws. So we want to make sure that you are armed with the right information as we unfold this analysis for you on today. If you are, and I was also contacted by a TV news station as well. I was contacted by a news station, and they wanted to do an interview with me on my analysis of this mandatory vaccine. And I refused to do the interview because I've learned the hard way, when you don't control your own editing on things, you have to be careful what people will leave in and take out. So I didn't want to do the interview because I didn't trust the editing on what they would have me saying when it aired. So I didn't do the interview. So let's look at the issue of this mandatory vaccine that's coming down in all 50 states. So one of the things we want to do is understand where the authority lies and how the authority has evolved. Where the authority lies and how the authority has evolved. So basically, in March of 2020, the Federal Department of Health and Human Services identified that the novel coronavirus 19 was a deadly virus, and they issued many mandates that would state that we would need to take all types of precautions to keep individuals safe from this terrible virus. Okay, so that was the first step. when the Department of Health and Human Services issued this ruling, this guidance rather, that the coronavirus was the deadly virus, it was dangerous, and that businesses would need to shut down. All of this information initially rolled out from the federal government, from the Department of Health and Human Services. What this did, it opened the door for other departments, the CDC and OSHA, to also issue guidelines, okay? So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that most of these guidance came from these federal agencies, okay? That's where the guidance came from. That's why you hear all these people saying, well, Dr. Fauci can't mandate this, he can't mandate that. That is true to a certain extent, because these are agencies that began to roll out how the COVID-19 was impacting the United States. But again, federal agencies, they do have authority to regulate, okay, in times of health crisis. And this is a true health crisis. So after the Department of Health and Human Services identified this issue with COVID-19, the next step was we have to get a vaccine for it. So the FDA, they began to work towards identifying a vaccine to get this under control. Now, this is where the issue and the debates and the conflicts come in with the vaccine. And I want to help make it really clear where this vaccine, where it becomes very contentious for many people. When there is a state of emergency, and we need certain types of medications and medical support, the FDA have limited authority where they can issue I want to make sure I get it right, a EUA. And you may say, well, what's an EUA? An EUA is an emergency authorization for medical assistance, okay? So the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine were all created and developed under the EUAs, okay? The emergency authorization. That's where they were created. Now, what's the difference between having a vaccine that's created under a EUA versus a vaccine that has been officially approved under the FDA? That is a big difference, okay? That is where your rights potentially come in. Because when a medication, such as a vaccine, is being issued under an EUA versus the FDA, okay, is being issued out of an emergency situation, this means that anyone that is administering that vaccine, they have to tell you pros and cons of it and let you decide whether you want to get that vaccine or not. It cannot be mandatory if it is under an EUA. Now, the Pfizer is no longer under an EUA. It has been officially approved as a medical vaccine, a deterrent for the COVID-19. So I want to read a few things for you from my notes to help you and give you some guidance on this, okay? So if you want to write this down, Section 564 of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, Section 564, gives the authority a special marketing authority to use unapproved products, okay? So this is where the issuance of Moderna and Pfizer came in. It came in under an EUA Section 564, okay? And that guidance allows you to take it. You don't have to be mandated to take anything that is under an EUA, okay? So patients, they have to be informed of the option to accept it or refuse the administration of the product. that is being subject to an EUA. Okay. So I'm just sharing this with individuals because my phone is blowing up. And these are cases that are, kind of difficult cases to litigate right now because the courts haven't ruled on many of the issues with these cases. So it's you can really get into a huge litigation fight in these embryonic stages of this type of case. Now that the Pfizer vaccine has been approved, now can an employer mandate that you take this FDA approved vaccine? So let's look at this issue. And from my point of view, I want to just share my personal point of view with you. Number one, I do believe in the vaccine. I think that the vaccines are helpful in terms of deterring the COVID-19 and the Delta variant. I think that the breakthrough cases for those that are vaccinated are very small numerically compared to those that are in the ICU that have never been vaccinated. And I would think that people should think about it and do the research in getting the vaccine. But we're going to talk about the exemptions and why what you can stand on legally not to get it if you do not want to, because these are the calls that I am getting day by day, in the evening, throughout the day. What can I do to protect myself if I do not want to get the vaccine? So these are the calls that I am getting. I also want to make you aware of an event that is going to take place here in St. Louis on September the 25th at 9:30 a.m. This event is going to take place at the Nazareth Temple Church, and there will be free COVID vaccines provided. This event is in partnership with the Urban League, the St. Louis Metropolitan Urban League. We will have an event at Nazareth Temple starting at 9:30 a.m. Nazareth Temple is located at 3300 Marshall Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63114. Okay. And if you want to receive the vaccine at this time, you are welcome to come to the Nazareth Temple Church to receive this vaccine. Bishop Melvin J. Smith is the pastor, and he is also an attorney. So if you have suffered a personal injury or you have a workman's comp question that's related to an injury on the job, or you obtain COVID-19 on the job due to negligence of the employer and you think you have a workers' comp claim, give him a call at 726-2141. That's Melvin J. Smith, 726-2141. Now let's get back to our discussion, because this is going to really help you to understand what rights you potentially have in a situation such as this. The first thing you want to do, you want to first identify the venue that you are seeking protection against or for. So there will be different standards in different venues. For example, a house of worship, okay, is different from a private employer. Working for a St. Louis public school or a Chicago public school or Los Angeles public school, or working in a hospital, working somewhere in Dallas, Texas, these types of venues will be regulated based upon public safety, okay, and the greater risk to the public and how you're serving the public. But if you are not we're going to primarily focus our analysis today on the private employer, okay? What rights do you have and protections do you have against a private employer, okay? So we're not going to focus a lot of attention today on if you're working for a hospital, because working in a hospital, there would be a heightened level of protection in a hospital because you have patients there. And so that the greater good in keeping them safe may potentially outweigh your right to refuse the vaccine. Okay. Same way with a school system. The greater good in you coming around the other teachers and coming around the students may outweigh your right to refuse the vaccine. But now we're going to focus on, like I said, the private employer. So if you have a private employer, you go to work and they say, look, this vaccine, this Delta variant is out of control. You are going to have to take this vaccine. The first thing you say is, well, I don't believe in the vaccine. I'm not comfortable with the vaccine. I'm not sure I want to take it. I don't have enough information on the long-term effects that it may have on my body. So I'm not comfortable taking it. One of the things I want to say is, let's have patience and kindness for those individuals that have divergent views about the vaccine. So I'm a person that took it, couldn't wait to get it, right? And then you have people who still haven't received it and then don't want to receive it. So when you have divergent views on getting the vaccine or not getting the vaccine, let's show kindness and respect to the different viewpoints, because we don't want this to turn into a civil war, okay? Those that are vaccinated versus those that are not. Because I think the evidence clearly show right now that those that are ending up in the hospital, those that are very, very sick are the unvaccinated. And the evidence support that those that have received the vaccine are more protected in this season that we are in. Okay, so let's look at what rights you have. How do you stand on a right when your employer tells you this? What grounds do you have? Okay, what grounds do you have when your employer comes to you with this? First, you want to look at, is there a legitimate exemption that you can use? A legitimate exemption that you can use. What are the exemptions? Primarily, you have a disability exemption and you have a health exemption. Okay, let's talk about the religious exemption first. Your employer comes to you and they say, you have to get the vaccine. And you say, well, no, I do not want to get the vaccine because it goes against my faith. And so your employer is like, what faith is there out there that bans a vaccine? This doesn't make any sense. So she gets upset, he gets upset, and they're telling you there's nothing out there that bans this vaccine. No religious exemption. Well, research shows that many of the vaccines have used embryonic cells, the fetal lining and stem lining of aborted embryos, right? And so that's what many people are using to say, I don't want to receive the vaccine, okay? For example, the Johnson & Johnson, there was a case made in Michigan with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine based upon that issue. And they were told that the Johnson & Johnson distributors of that vaccine, you have to make the individuals aware what is in this vaccine prior to the administration of the shot, to give them the right to refuse it or not. Okay? So let's get back to this employer. So you say there is a religious exemption. You do not want to get the vaccine because of your faith in God or whatever religion it is, right? This is what you're standing on. The first problem that the employer has, if it is the Moderna vaccine or if it is the Pfizer vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, those two vaccines currently are still under EUAs, emergency use authorization. Emergency use authorization. And you cannot mandate that a person receive medication that is under an emergency use authorization. You just can't do it. Now that the Pfizer vaccine has been removed from an EUA and an emergency use vaccine to being fully approved by the FDA, can the employer mandate that you receive the Pfizer vaccine? Can't mandate the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson because those are obviously still under EUAs. And then a vaccine does not turn into an FDA approval. It does not evolve into that. The distributor or the manufacturer, they have to apply for a biologic license, This biologic license tells what research went into this vaccine, okay, that it now qualifies to be fully approved by the FDA, okay, a biologics license. If they have submitted a biologics license and it has been approved, that is how medicine or cosmetics receive the approval from the FDA after that biologics license has been issued. So in the case with Pfizer issued this license, right? And the Pfizer has been fully approved by the FDA, okay? The Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson, it has not been, okay? So to help you on this, your employer has no legal standing. Your private employer has no legal standing to mandate that you take the Moderna or the Johnson & Johnson. She can't do it, right? Well, can they do it with the Pfizer vaccine? The legislative history of this country, the United States of America, states that no one can be forced into these vaccines, okay? And I want to read the language from a Supreme Court case. I want people to think about it in terms of my rights as civil liberties, or are they being violated by the federal government or the U.S. Constitution? My constitutional rights, are they being violated? I hope people get the vaccine, personally, okay? That's my view. This is Legal Views with Sheila Stuart. My legal view is take the shot, right? But if you don't want to take the shot, that's what makes America what it is. It has divergent views and beliefs. No one has to, we all do not have to agree. We can respectfully disagree, right? We can respectfully disagree on these things. But if you're not going to take the shot and your employer is forcing this shot on you, do you have a constitutional right? So I want to share some information with you from a Supreme Court case that protection, your bodily protection, the integrity of your body is one of the highest fundamental rights in the country, okay? It's one of the highest fundamental rights in this country that nobody can intrude upon this. Now, if you are in a state like I am in Missouri. Missouri is a red state. It's a very conservative state. So states like Missouri, Florida, Texas, etc., Indiana, oh my goodness, Mississippi, these type of states will definitely, unlikely, never support a private employer mandating that you get the vaccine in the first place, okay? Not a very conservative state. Because remember, in the conservative states, they don't even want to mandate that you wear a mask, right? They don't want to mandate that you wear a mask. So if there's no restrictions on mask wearing, you don't have to wear a mask, I think you're pretty safe to believe that these private employers cannot mandate that you receive the vaccine if you don't want to take the shot. Take the shot. But if you don't want to take the shot, I don't believe they can mandate that you take the shot. Okay, so let's talk about the 14th Amendment. Let's talk about the 14th Amendment. And it was a case out of Michigan, Flint, Michigan, v. Waters. And this case out of Flint, Michigan, the Supreme Court cited that the right to body integrity, that we have a right to body integrity, and it is an indispensable right recognized at common law, the right to be free from unjustified intrusions on personal security, encompassing the freedom from bodily restraint and punishment. This is the case in the dicta that lawyers are using to fight any type of mandate to receive the vaccine. Okay, they're pulling the dicta from this case. And the Supreme Court went on to say, in cases like this, no right is to be held more sacred or is more carefully guarded by the common law than the right of every individual to the possession and control of his own person, free from all restraint, interference of others, unless by clear and unquestionable authority of the law. Okay? So there is an integrity of an individual's person, and an integrity of an individual's person that the courts are protecting here. So how does that work? If you all have any questions, please type them on the screen and I will respond to you and give you my feedback in real time if you have any questions regarding your job and so forth, because I'm reading and I'm trying to give you the law as it relates to the Supreme Court, where you have the absolute authority is resting. Now let me share with you another issue that's taking place in the United States. The United States is really divided right now as it relates to rights. As you know, that the Texas abortion law, the Texas put a ban on abortion, and they deputized their citizens primarily to stop abortion. It went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court didn't do anything about it. So that's a very conservative court. So I think in the United States, I think that individuals who are anti-vaccine will be safe because the United States Supreme Court is very conservative right now. And I believe that if a case went all the way to the Supreme Court as it related to an employer terminating an employee because they refused to get the vaccine, I believe that the U.S. Supreme Court will return a verdict that the employer cannot mandate that anyone takes that shot. That's what I believe, that their decision would come down to, that they cannot be mandated that someone takes the shot. So what's happening in the workplace then? So if you uncover all of the conversations as it relates to this mandatory dicta that you hear President Biden speaking about, and you're going to take this shot, we've been patient long enough, you're going to take this shot, and people are feeling intimidated, underneath all of the smoke, you have many vested rights to refuse the shot. Now, people say, well, why are you saying that? Because my phone is blowing up and you have a right to know what your rights are, okay? And since I have this show, I have this platform, I wanted to take the opportunity to inform you of those rights, okay? I want you to know that people can't fire you because you refuse to take the shot. But my hope is that you take the shot, because the evidence supports that many people who are unvaccinated have died and are critically ill. And you see all of these individuals on TV are sick and in the hospital, and they're saying if they could just turn back the hand of time, they would have taken the shot. But you can't turn back the hand of time once you get sick. So this is the time to do it. I'm going to give you this information again. On Saturday at 9:30 a.m. at 3300 Marshall Avenue. We will be having a free vaccination at Nazareth Temple starting at 9:30 in partnership with the Urban League. You can come to the church at 9:30 and thereafter, and you can receive the protection for the COVID-19. You can receive the shot on September the 25th at 9:30 a.m. Attorney Melvin J. Smith is the pastor of that church. And so let's talk about the bullying that many people are that's going on. And people are talking about they're being harassed, they're being bullied, and so forth on the job. So let's talk about that. And then I want to give you the guidance that has come down from the EEOC, okay? You need to know about the guidance that has come down from the EEOC. I had spoken about that earlier this year, but I'm sure many people don't remember those earlier shows, but I want to just kind of familiarize you with that guidance. Now, workplace harassment is always actionable in the court of law. Workplace harassment. You cannot harass an individual because they refuse to take the shot, okay? So you cannot harass them. You can tell them and explain to them that you want them to get the shot, but you cannot harass them if they have not received the shot, okay? Do you have a right to file a complaint against an employer because they are harassing you to take the shot? Absolutely you can. It's workplace harassment. They cannot do it. They can give you the advice, the information regarding the shot, but they cannot harass you until you get the shot, okay? Now, you have a lot of this taking place. You have individuals quitting their jobs because they're being harassed and they're under severe duress about the shot. Do you have a disability that you believe that will cause you to have more problems if you get the shot? I recommend that you do this. Get that information and take it to your employer. Where do you get the information from? Your doctor, excuse me. Obtain the medical documentation from your doctor and take the information in to your employer and say, I have these medical complications, I have these underlying health conditions, and I do not think it's a good idea for me to take a vaccine that's still in an emergency use authorization. I'm not comfortable taking a vaccine that's still under an emergency use authorization. So here is my documentation, okay? Here is my documentation that supports the fact that I have an underlying health condition and my system is somewhat compromised. And I am not comfortable having a compromised immune system. I'm not comfortable having a compromised immune system and taking a vaccine that's still in an emergency use authorization form. Therefore, I'm not going to take it. And here's the information. Once you have provided your employer with that credible information, it cannot be this holistic, herbal doctor kind of information. It has to be something medically defined and medically tangible, okay? I'm not putting down holistic doctors, and they're also people, but I'm saying if you want the credibility to move forward on your claim, you would like to have medical documented information of a documented medical condition that will allow you to avoid the vaccine. You get that information and you turn it in to your employer. Furthermore, the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, since they are still in the EUA status, that the biologics license for those vaccines have not been obtained. The biologic license for those vaccines have not been obtained. Only the biologics license for the Pfizer has been obtained. You have a right to know the pros and cons of getting that medication in your arm, and you have a legitimate right to refuse it. Okay? That is your language for refusing that vaccine. Now, how does the EEOC come into play with this? How does the EEOC come into play? Because the EEOC put out guidance that I believe caused somewhat confusion, because what it did, the guidance that the EEOC initially put out, it made it appear that the employers could mandate you take a shot. Okay? It appeared that they had the authority to mandate the shot. They can't do that. What the EEOC stated is that the employer has to provide a reasonable accommodation for the employee that states that they have a disability as it relates to maybe not getting the shot. Okay? That the employer must provide a reasonable accommodation for any disability that the employee states that I cannot get the shot. Let me give you an example, put it in layman's terms. You refuse to get the shot, okay, because of your health status. You refuse to get the shot. And you say you have a kidney problem. You know, your kidneys are weak or your kidneys have been damaged, so you do not want to get the shot because it's under emergency use authorization. You don't know the long-term side effects from it, so you don't want the shot, right? Reasonable accommodations in this case may look like allowing you to continue to work from home after all of the other employees have come back to work. So you can still potentially have the right to work from home after everyone else has come back to work. Okay, let's read this question from Sheila. She says, hello, Sheila. I am a teacher at a charter school. This is a public school in St. Louis. If my job mandates it, can I opt out? Can they fire me? I have, what did it say? I have no visible disability. Okay, diabetes. Can your school mandate that you take the shot? I am going to say no, they cannot. If they fire you, I would say you would have a legitimate cause of action. Primarily, I would look at how they are dictating to you to get the shot. Now, there is a public health regulation that a school body may have within their school ordinances to keep the teachers safe, to keep the children safe. I am not aware of those ordinances at this time, so I'm just giving out information. I would have to look that up for you, Sheila, and tell you what those ordinances are. But no ordinance can trump the federal laws of the land, okay? If you are not comfortable receiving the vaccine, then that is a job primarily that you cannot work from home. You know that. You need to be in the classroom teaching the kids. So it's going to be difficult for them to give you an accommodation for you to continuously work from home unless they allow you to provide teaching services remotely where you're doing it on the screen, kind of like how I'm doing now. If you mask up and do not get the shot, you would need to present to them a plan to stay safe. Okay, you would need to present a plan to stay safe, and you would need to present the validity of why you're refusing to get the shot and turn it in to them. If they mandate that you take the shot, the first step is, what type of shot are they mandating that you take? Are they mandating that you take the the Pfizer, which is now approved. Then there's a heightened authority that they may have with that Pfizer shot versus less authority with the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson shot, obviously, right? Because we talked about that. They have no biologics license at this point. If they say, you have a question for me? Yes.
This concept that a lawyer must make reasonable accommodation in a way that is too broad a term, because employers are then left with a loophole where they can say, well, I'm only going to apply this law to as much as I'm able to afford. Now, the question that I want to throw at you, and maybe you can answer this, is this. Now, under the federal ruling that just came out, that the companies that have 100 employees or more must get the vaccinated. And it said, except for conscientious objectors. Now, what does it mean by conscientious objection? And how do you prove who is eligible for conscientious objection? You have it.
Okay, thank you. That goes back to the exemptions. What are your valid exemptions that you are using to circumvent what the employer is stating? Are you using a religious exemption? One of the things you can do is state that I refuse to take the shot because I have a religious exemption based upon my faith. Then you identify what your faith is and why your faith opposes the shot. The second exemption is a health and disability exemption, where you do not feel, based upon your medical documentation, that you should take the shot. Those are the two primary exemptions that you can use. The federal government is going to be different from the private employer. So we're talking about, can the private employer. So if a person has 100 or more employees, can that person legitimately sue their employer if they are forced to take the shot? Okay? And they have a definable exemption that they are standing on. The answer is absolutely they can. Okay, so what I am saying is that there may be thousands of people that get fired before the courts send down their federal rulings on these cases. There may be a lot of people that get fired, but these individuals would have to file the lawsuits. They would have to file the lawsuits to say that I was wrongfully terminated because I refused to get this shot. And then they will give the exemptions on why the exemptions that they stood on not to get the shot. Okay, because as I shared earlier, that the only vaccine that has an FDA approval and it has a biologics license and was fully approved is the Pfizer vaccine. We do not even have currently vaccines that have been approved for children. We don't have vaccines for children yet. So there's a lot of gray areas. So what happens in a court of law, basically in a system like this, someone mandates a law. They mandate a law. I feel that the law violates my rights. So what I do is then file a lawsuit, and I'll take that lawsuit as far as I can because I feel that my rights have been violated. So until these laws are challenged, we have to challenge the law. We have to say that, hey, I don't, my religious beliefs allow me not to get the shot. My health condition allows me not to get the shot. And so if these are my beliefs, I file a lawsuit based upon this. That is how you get the final ruling from the court. Because what the government is doing at this time is just issuing their mandates. They're issuing their guidance. So now the people have to push back and say, I have a fundamental right to be free from those types of intrusions. Does that answer your question, Daryl?
Okay, let me throw this one at you a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, usually when you hear the words conscientious objection, usually it's labeled to a Jehovah's Witness, which usually they're the ones that basically deny any kind of medical intrusion. Now, will this apply to other states as well? You're the mic.
This would apply to any faith. So the Jehovah Witness, for example, they are not the religion that can say, I refuse to get the shot. Whatever your beliefs are, if they are valid, viable beliefs that you hold, okay, that you believe in, you are entitled to stand on what your thoughts are about your particular religion, whether it's Jehovah Witness, whether it's Baptist, whether it's Jewish faith. You have that right. And the government, this is where this is going to be this big collision, where people are saying, I don't want to take this shot, and the federal government cannot intrude upon my fundamental civil liberties to make me take it. And if they fire me for not taking the shot, then the issue becomes, was I wrongfully terminated, and did I have a vested property right in that job, and that it was wrongfully taken away? So it can just keep evolving until the courts rule on this. My thoughts are that we have a very conservative U.S. Supreme Court, and that the U.S. Supreme Court is not going to rule that individuals are mandated to take this shot. Anything else, Daryl?
Yes, there's always something new to learn every day. And there's nothing in a way we can do about it. I'm sorry, hold on. There we go. I just thought that there was basically just one faith that they were only going to allow for the termination.
No, I believe anyone's faith can challenge this. Okay, so whatever your faith is, you have a right to challenge that exemption. You have a right to stand on that exemption under your religious belief. Okay, so if you have religious beliefs, you would have a right to stand on them. Okay, and to resist it if you believe that your faith is at risk or being subject to this new law. You would have a right to stand on that, as well as a disability. You would have those rights. But again, I hope individuals take the shot. Now, we can't say, I think over 600,000 people have died due to COVID-19. There are 600,000 flags in the National Mall to honor those that fell to COVID-19. This is a deadly virus that can be, you can protect yourself through the vaccine. I highly recommend that you do the research, speak with a very, very, very good doctor, and get the pros and cons of having the shot. I took the shot. I took both shots. I took the Moderna shot. I've never had COVID. I've never been infected with COVID. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And that's what I'm saying. And I went for quite a period of time without wearing my mask. I wasn't masked up for quite a while. And then as the Delta variant got out of control, I put my mask back on. But even during the time that I wasn't wearing a mask, and I would go into crowds, I was going to restaurants, and I took a nice trip to a beautiful golf resort. I didn't wear a mask, and I never was infected. And I believe it was God, and I believe it was the shot. And I believe if the shot has been made available to keep you safe. Do not end up on TV like many of these other individuals who are saying that they wish they can turn back the hand of time and get the shot. I've seen so many people do that. They wish they can turn back the hand of time and take the shot, because the effects of COVID, they were so devastating, and they had no idea that it would be that devastating. And the shot, the effects of COVID far outweigh the effects of a shot. Now, I took the Moderna shot. I took both Moderna shots. I had absolutely no side effects from the Moderna shot. None. No nausea. I wasn't nauseous, excuse me. I didn't have a headache. I wasn't tired. I didn't have to get into bed and lay down all day. I just kept going. My 87-year-old dad, he took the Moderna shot as well. He had absolutely no side effects from the shot either. He took both shots. He didn't get sick. He didn't get tired. He didn't end up in bed. We were fine. We never missed a step. So I would just advise individuals that's on the fence to do the research and to find out which shot you feel more comfortable with. Obviously, many people now will want the Pfizer shot because it has been fully approved by the FDA. But the effectiveness of the Moderna was like 97%. And it was more, research showed that it was a little more effective than the Pfizer. And my experience was it did me great. I've been fine. And I just want to encourage you, if you are in a work environment where people are not vaccinated and you're working there and they want you to get the shot, I just want you to consider it possibly, because if you're working in a crowded workplace where you guys cannot properly social distance and so forth, you do not want to get COVID-19. Okay, you don't want to get this virus. If there's anything you can do to protect yourself, do what you can do to protect yourself. Now, Daryl, do you have any more questions? I wanted to look at something else here. Daryl? Okay.
It's just a strange type of thing, but I did it because I was told that I should do it.
Okay. Well, do you feel that you've been safe, that you have been protected by the shot? Daryl, do you feel like you've been protected by the shot?
Getting the coronavirus. So this is left up to how much are we willing to accept getting these shots, and are they as good as they state? So this is something that has yet to be fully determined. Do you have it?
Okay, so the question is, Daryl asked a question. There's now a third shot that's being required, and that there are breakthrough cases. There are breakthrough cases, and that some people are getting the coronavirus even after they have gotten the shot. Now, this is what I would say. First and foremost, I am not a doctor, obviously, right? I am not a doctor. I am an attorney. But the research and the evidence clearly shows that more people that have gotten sick are the unvaccinated. Those people that have gotten sick and ended up on ventilators and so forth are unvaccinated. The people that are dying right now are unvaccinated. So the evidence, the medical documentation clearly supports that the vaccine has worked to protect people as a majority. Yes, there have been people that have gotten sick and that have died. I'm not familiar with where the numbers are on that, but we do know that there are some breakthrough cases. However, the far majority of people have been safe and have not gotten infected. Okay, my father and I are one of them, or some of them. Okay, and like I said, he's 87. I'm not going to tell my age. Not going to tell my age. But however, we have been protected from this COVID-19. I think with the numbers rising the way that they are, people should get the shot. What are you saying? This is Daryl Breath that's on. Daryl Breath is the manager for C-Joy Network. He's all the way in Boston, Massachusetts. He's a radio icon on the East Coast. And this is the individual that I'm dialoguing with. You may not be able to hear him very clearly, but it's an honor to have him on live and to ask questions in real time. So, Daryl, what was your last question? What did you say?
I was just saying, you're looking good for your age.
Well, you don't know how old I am, Daryl. Well, don't.
I'm not going to try to guess.
No, don't guess. Don't guess. Right, stay on my good side, Daryl. Don't guess my age. Thank you. Please don't guess my age. Some people may think they're giving me a compliment and may say I don't know. I'm not going to put an age out there. But nevertheless, just to recap it, we're going to wrap this up just to try to help you to understand. We were primarily discussing your rights against a private employer. Can they mandate that you take the shot? All of the guidance that's coming from the federal government, that's coming out of Washington, D.C., states that they can. However, you have a fundamental right to your civil liberties, and you can file a lawsuit based upon the 14th Amendment, violation of your rights and so forth, as it is applied to the states, and you can sue for that intrusion upon your fundamental rights. The government is going to look at, do they have a compelling state interest? Is there a compelling state interest for the government to take action? Is there a compelling state interest? Well, in many cases, many people will say there is a compelling state interest to regulate health and safety for the good of the people. There is a compelling state interest to regulate health and safety for the good of the people. However, the regulation of health and safety cannot violate your civil liberties. And if you're standing on a religious exemption or a disability exemption, you will more likely prevail in a court of law. If you are terminated, you will more likely prevail in a court of law. Okay. Now, there is a difference when we get to a place of worship. Okay. Now, Melvin J. Smith, attorney Melvin J. Smith, he's going to be on my show on October the 30th. You do not want to miss October the 30th. You need to mark your calendars, tell your friends. He is going to bring it. It's going to be a great show. And he is also doing a Facebook Live on your rights in places of worship. Okay, so you don't want to miss that. Go to the Nazareth Temple page and you get all of the information on that live. However, you need to know that you are in good standing. You have rights. If you are being bullied or harassed on the job, to take the shot. You have a right to say what your exemptions are, whether they're worship, whether there's religion or whether there is a health disability and what those medical claims are. And you can tell your employer that they have to provide you a reasonable accommodation so that you can keep your job. They have to look for a reasonable accommodation once you present these exemptions to them. Okay. I want to thank you for tuning in. That's my time. It went by so fast. Oh my goodness. That is all of the time I have. Thank you for tuning in to Legal Views with Attorney Sheila R. Stuart. Please tune in to listen to us on next week as we talk about Coldwater Creek. As you know, thousands of people have claimed that that toxic creek has created a cancerous plague in that area. So we're going to explore that and talk about the many people that have fallen victim. Please tune in on next week. Thank you. You have been listening to Legal Views with Attorney Sheila R. Stuart. And the mic is back in your hands, Daryl. Thank you for jumping in with your questions, Daryl. I appreciate that.